Oh, hey, y'all. Where's my X on the flow? Here it is.
Right here.
Thank you for having me. So, my story begins at the fieriest part of the day, and it had peaked. And all of the people from my hostel started coming out onto the patio, stretching and rubbing their eyes. It was Granada, Spain, and it was 10 years ago. And I'm pored over a map with my friend Sybil, looking through these guidebooks, trying to figure out what to do with ourselves. And Derek is shirtless and sweeping the floor around us. And he looks at us and he says, you could check out the waterfall. Waterfall. That word killed me in that moment. I pictured myself cascade of water, cold all over my body, washing away the ash and the dirt and the stickiness of Spain. It's pretty hot. So within 10 minutes, I think, we had a crew of 5 people rallied to come with us. There was Jace, who was a brunette guy with a huge smile and an Aussie accent. He was hilarious. And then David, this wiry guy who studied theater, I believe, and was constantly just making up jokes and songs. And then Miguel with his ginger mess of hair and his Skidmore flip-flops that left a mark of dirt when he took them off. The 5 of us, the 3 boys, Sybil and I, went to the grocery store and packed up all sorts of goodies to have a picnic later in the day. But we topped off our entire picnic excursion with about 7 bottles of wine, which is a lot for a crew of 5. And so we took these bottles and we packed them in our packs and we started off on our way. And we went up the hill next to Rambutan, which was the hostel. And we found ourselves in this area where there were these crazy caves that had been painted. And inside of them, there's picture frames and tiny little knickknacks and doors that actually fit through the different cave entrances. And we pass through that area and we go to where the path evens out. And we start on our way and we open up our first bottle of wine and we pass it up and down the row of the 5 of us. And that turns into a second, which turns into a third. And then there are these little children talking to Sybil in some language I don't even understand. I think she's actually speaking Portuguese in Spain, which is weird. And then David starts with that crazy camp song from The Parent Trap. Do you guys remember that one with the do 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 do? And so they were just marching along, drinking this wine. And then dusk comes out of absolutely nowhere. And I don't even know where we are at this point. We're at a fork in the road that's not on Derek's map. Surprise. And we have no idea. Do we go left or do we go right? And Jason is extremely insistent. He stands up on this rock and he says, look, the mountain will have water coming off of the mountain, and that will be the way that we go. Think about it. Waterfall, mountain, this is the way we go. And at this point, I'm so soaked in wine that all I can think is ooh, fireflies. And so I really want to go down this path. And it's Miguel that breaks the silence here. He's the one that's the tiebreaker. He kind of is taller than all of us, and he looks over and he's like, hey, check that out. I think that's a weather vane. I think that's something interesting. And Sybil looks and she says, guys, I don't know about that. I mean, it looks like it's somebody's property. What if we're trespassing? This is a city we don't know. I don't know about this. And David's like, nah, dude, adventure time. Let's do this. So they're all outvoted, and we end up going down this path. And I'm wearing flip-flops. I end up stumbling a couple of times, and, it was definitely the flip-flops, guys. It was definitely the flip-flops. So I look up at the end of this trail, and in front of me is not a waterfall at all. It is this abandoned mansion. It is 3 buildings covered in ivy and weeds that have been pounding themselves through these insane pieces of wood and plaster to make this insane fight between nature and architecture come to life in front of me. And I'm faced with a swimming pool that's half empty at this point. The deepest end has become a new pond of rainwater. There are toads and lily pads and tiny little fish in this pond, which is a swimming pool, which is weird. The sun sets and the moon comes up, and it casts this amazing silver light on everything. So even though we don't have lights, we can actually see where we're stepping, which is important because there's holes in this crazy foundation. I'll get to that another time. But after about 2 minutes, David pulls out this crazy log, and we end up, sorry, my time is up. This is really sad. Do you guys want to hear the end of my story? So we have our picnic. We end up pulling out all of the firewood we can find. We make the biggest fire I've ever made, which is pretty freaking big. And we open up our last bottle of wine and we share it under the moonlight with our songs and our hearts and everything completely laden with love. And I have no idea how we got home that night. I have no idea. We didn't have lights. We didn't have maps. We didn't have a blueprint for how the hell this was supposed to go down. But 10 years later, I still don't have a blueprint for how things are supposed to go down. And it doesn't really matter, does it? Thank you.